Today's episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott. Now, Joe is not only a fantastic guitar player, he draws on his years of experience as the ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and also at the McNally Smith Music College. Here's a few words from Joe about the course.
You're tired of wading through hundreds of random guitar videos and just want to become a better player. Fretboard Biology is your answer. Fretboard Biology is a self-paced, college-level program that'll give you the right instruction, in the right amounts, and in the right order. You'll learn the same information I taught to thousands of other guitar players over 30 years of teaching in top music colleges. If you want to make real progress with your guitar playing, then sign up for a free 7-day trial at fretboardbiology.com.
Hi there, you are listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling. Thank you so much for joining me for episode number 203. Now today I am speaking to the unbelievably great Andy Timmons. Man, one of my all-time favorites. Do you know, if you look up the word tone in the dictionary, they've just got a picture of Andy. Look up phrasing, look up feel, look up taste, all that good stuff. Andy is back with a new album called Electric Truth. It is fantastic, and Andy tells us all about it. It's produced by Josh Smith, another amazing, fantastic guitar player. We get the background on that, all the tones, all the guitars, all the composition. We deep dive into modulation, and throughout the interview, Andy's plugged in and sounds incredible. So my heart and my brain was exploding in this little concert for one that I was experiencing as I got to chat with Andy Timmons. So I am super stoked to share it with you. Let's just jump straight into our conversation. The Guitar Speak podcast 203 with Andy Timmons.
How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great, Andy. How are you?
I'm good, man. Where are you? You're Australia?
Yeah, I'm in Sydney.
In Sydney, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I love Sydney so much. I love Australia in general, but I've had some very good times in Sydney over the years. So
Yeah, nice.
look forward to coming back someday.
That'd be cool, man. That'd be so good. Because you came here with ONJ, we call her, Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah, I think at least 3 times. Maybe once for some rehearsals, but we did shows there at least on 2 different tours. We got to record a DVD at the Opera House there with a symphony, so
Fantastic.
That was kind of a career highlight, you know. And I'm so happy that part of my life with Olivia was documented in such a nice way, you know.
Yeah, very cool.
So very, very, very fond memories, and she's just one of my favorite people that I'll ever work with, you know.
Nice.
And a handy way to go to Australia with royalty. You know what I mean? It's like not a bad way to see the country.
Absolutely. Have you been here as Andy Timmons?
I have not. Not for clinic tours, not for any band stuff. So sadly, no. I hope to repair that situation sooner than later. You know.
Yeah, cool.
We'll hope to.
That'd be nice. Well, people are playing gigs again. You're playing gigs. You've launched your album.
Slowly but surely. Yeah, we've done a few things locally, and I've gone, outside Texas a couple of times. I go to the UK at the end of June for some shows with that pedal show guys with
Dan and
Mick and Dan,
Yep.
and then I go to Italy to do a guitar camp with Frank Gambale and Tom Quayle. Then a camp in here in the States at the end of July with Paul Gilbert and some amazing guitar players. So. Little by little, getting out and about, you know, tentatively.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time again. We spoke in 2016 when Theme from a Perfect World came out, and that was cool. That was such a fun conversation for me, and to hear about that record. So I was pretty stoked when the new record came out, Electric Truth. So congratulations on the new record, and thanks for having some time to talk with me about it.
Oh man, happy to be with you, man. Absolutely.
Great. And you got your guitar in hand? This is an audio podcast.
Yeah, I always, in between interviews, I don't like downtime, so I'm usually just kind of working on tunes or tones. Yeah. whatever it might be, you know.
Beautiful. That's so
Plus,
good.
then I can punctuate if need be a musical example if we get wherever we go, right?
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Wow. I think last time we spoke too, you had your Zoom 9001 plugged in.
Are you serious?
I remember, and it sounded cool, but you've kind of upped the online game a little.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine why I would have had the Zoom unless I was replicating some of my old tunes, because that would have been the old Zoom processor. What was on my first record because I thought I was making demos, but we ended up releasing some of those demos as album tracks, like Carpe Diem, the original Cry for You, Hiroshima, Busta Soda. It was all direct into the board at the end of the session just to get a scratch track lead guitar down, you know, on top of the rhythm tracks. And the spontaneity and the energy of the moment couldn't be, you know, bettered at the time anyway. But now I cringe and go, I can't believe that was my tone. You know? But I mean, it was a great practice tool. I did a lot of writing on the old Zoom back in the day. But yeah. Now I would tend to want to stick to organic, you know, over that. Yeah,
sure. Hey, so the new record was produced by Josh Smith. How do you know Josh, and how did that come about?
I haven't known him that long. I was just like so many of us, started to discover him on YouTube and different things online, and I just became such a fan. Just, you know, because I could recognize the deep, you know, foundation of blues, but I heard the jazz stuff and the other stuff that, you know, always draws my ear. Like, oh, okay, this guy's going a little deeper, like a lot of my favorite players do normally. So I got his number somehow. I don't even remember who I got it from, but just reached out to him just to tell him, hey man, love your playing. I'm a fan, and you know that was that. But you know, we got to be friends, and he was telling me that he was just. This would have been 2019. He said, yeah, man, I just finished my home studio. It's been my life dream to have this great recording studio so I can invite friends. Man, why don't you come out and do some recording, you know? And so the more we talked about it, we kind of came upon the idea that he would produce, and, you know, I would just kind of come out as the artist. I wanted him, because I wanted to do something just outside of my normal power trio, which I love the Andy Timmons band. That's my stable of players, and I love it dearly. But it's also nice to you know, collaborate with other artists and other musicians. And so I just wanted, I always loved the musicians I heard Josh playing with. And I knew that if I just kind of let him take the reins, I'll just come out, bring some songs. And I was pretty confident that it was going to work, you know, and just kind of have my voice be plugged into a bit of his world, you know, which I kind of consider bluesy, organic, some funk and some jazz in there. And it came together real organically like that. You know, I had quite a few tunes written, you know, for that project, or maybe I had like one in my back pocket. The tune Grace had been around for a few years. I just hadn't recorded it with my band.
Okay, great.
And he wrote something specifically for the record, and we co-wrote a couple things. So, you know, I came out in early 2020, right at the beginning, right before NAMM. You know, a lot of players usually go out for the NAMM show every January in Anaheim, in the before times anyway. And so we did the record in 2.5 days, and I was going to fly, as far as the four, you know, band members playing together, bass guitar, drums, and keyboards. And I was going to come back in March to finish, you know, overdubs and whatever we needed to do to finish. But of course, nobody went anywhere in March of 2020. Yeah. Everything got locked down. So of course that pulled the plug on the project for a while, but I was able to finish it in my home studio, and Josh and his amazing engineer, Alan Hertz, were able to get it mixed, you know, sometime, I guess, the end of last year. Then by the time you find a window to release it and do all the promo, it takes a while sometimes. So it's kind of handy to have this record in my back pocket, and this fun project collaborating with Josh, who was just a treat to work with. Mm-hmm. Really great to work with another guitar player as the producer. You know what I mean? Because you know, we have our careers and we have our things that we do really well, but it's cool to tap into each other's world a little bit. Okay. You know what I mean? And so I really enjoyed that, and having some ears on the other side of the glass that, you know, that's a really great guitar player. You know, it was a lot of fun for me, and I think the difference in the way the band played with me and what that brought out of my playing made it a really fun, unique thing. You know, different than my normal trio records.
Okay, yeah. I was really interested in having, as I said, a guitar player produce you. The last record was co-produced with yourself and Mike Dunn, who's been your longtime trio bass player. So are there any specific instances you can talk about where Josh, as a guitar player, led you in a certain direction, or how he produced you?
Well, he would have had, hey, try this, if there was like an overdub part or, there wasn't a whole lot when it came to the melodies and stuff. Most of those came from me, and, there was plenty of respect there from him. But he was really great at some suggestions for maybe the keyboard player, or like at the end of EWF, because I wrote the main theme of the. I got too much to that. My expression pedal isn't working. Hold on a sec. 1 second. I've got a prototype pedal here. Now it's working. Aha, okay. Anyway, so that little funky tune. So it's kind of built around that pseudo, Al McKay, Earth, Wind, and Fire thing.
Yeah,
but he came up with a couple of really cool riffs for the end because we needed kind of a jam section.
Okay.
He came up with... Wait. Really cool. That repeats. And this bar. It's like we had the tune kind of rehearsed and getting it together. Oh man, it needs another riff at the end. And that's the kind of thing that I'm not as great at. Is like, I can write the tune, but when there needs to be some other little section, sometimes. So it was killer that he just had this kind of Hendrixy, 4/4, 5/4, sequence of tunes. Like, oh, this is great. And I rarely write things that have kind of an odd meter, know. So that gave another extra flair to it. So that track might have been the first, if not the second take, and it's all live when we get the track. So we kept as much as we could from whatever, I was in, on the floor, as they say, with the rhythm section. And when you can get that kind of interplay and that feel, it's handy if you can keep what you played. And there's a couple areas I get into where like, oh man, I might have wanted to play something different, but it all feels good because we're all kind of tapped into what each other is playing. It's a very, we call it very large ears. You know what I mean? Everybody's really tuned into each other, and it's a wonderful situation to step in with players, even though we hadn't played together before. As far as me with Lamar Carter on drums, Travis Carlton on bass, and Darren Johnson on keyboards, they'd worked a bunch together, either with Josh and with many, many, many great players. So, but fortunately, I found it fairly easy to fall in with as a unit, you know what I mean? But that takes it's a compromise, right? It's everybody's got to listen to where's my time feel, how's everybody else feeling it, and so hopefully the results were good. But I that's why I wanted to put EWF first on the record, because it really kind of was a good example of the whole experience for me, which was pretty easy, to be honest. Aside from just wanting to play the best I could. It's relatively, well, let's just say exponentially easier when the band sounds that great. You know what I mean? This record would sound just as great without my guitar playing in it. Trust me. It's just, they sound so beautiful, man. Just great sounds all the way around. And of course, Alan Hertz, the guy that I mentioned that engineered and mixed the record, did a wonderful job of keeping it really organic sounding,
That's cool. Yeah, I loved and EWF was the first single, of course, that you released too. So it was a nice shout out. So that's been out for a little while, and we've been hanging out for the record since. That tune, the couple of things you mentioned, that 5 and 4 pushing against each other at the end is so fun. That snare displacement. Is it? If you're not playing against that a lot, how does that push your phrasing in different directions as well?
Completely. So you could, and if you, well, of course, I know me better than anybody, but I can hear myself not really knowing where I am. And I remember the take, and fortunately Lamar was like, he would kind of set up where that next downbeat was coming every now and then, or really set up a phrase. And that would inspire me to play certain things. Right. But I don't practice odd meter stuff ever. I would have to, back in the day, working with Simon Phillips all the time, because he's writing in 15/16 and 11/8 or whatever's going on. And so those are challenging things for me, but I love doing it because it is challenging. You know what I mean? It's, I like playing shuffles. I like playing ballads, but it's also nice to have something that stretches out a little bit. And so that was nice that Josh brought that flavor into it. Killer riff, but then also a little bit of an odd phrasing. And that's going to bring different stuff out. It's going to bring, different, fresh ideas, hopefully. I mean, no matter what the situation, I'm hoping to come up, especially with improvisation, something that's fresh and new to myself as well as the listener. We rely on certain vocabulary, but I don't play a lot of scales, you'll notice, when I solo. I'd rather it be melodic ideas kind of connected to each other in the moment. And that's what what I've gotten from some of my favorite improvisers, one namely being Chet Baker, who I never really heard play a lot of licks. He was always just kind of in the moment playing melodies, So when that can happen, that's my favorite kind of stuff.
That's cool. That secondary riff you mentioned as well too. Just staying on EWF for an example.
Sure.
So you're modulating. So the main theme, the main head's in B minor. That riff's in E minor. I've noticed in your composition, even though Josh, I guess, brought that second riff, was you're a big fan of the modulation in a lot of your work. Yeah. Where, I guess, when words fail, for example, you're in A major, you go to A minor, so it's like a modal kind of shift. Yeah. Wow, I want to talk about that tune in a moment, but you're in C, but you move it to E flat.
Which tune? What's the E flat?
Is it Grace? You're in C, and then you've got that G minor, A flat, E flat.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Because it starts in C. So how do we get to E flat?
It's a big G minor.
So that B section kind of goes to F, and then we're in now just. So the last chord of that chorus, or the main melody is a B flat. So then I just go down to the G minor. And there it is.
There you go.
I use that flat 7 turns to be the 5 of the next key. I always love any time I can get out of the key, because it's usually a pretty emotional tug on the heartstring when you can do it just right. Mm-hmm. And that's the same with and then so I somehow get into it. So when I play F major out of A major, that kind of relates to the A minor.
Yeah, that's when words fail common. That you're quoting here.
I'm sorry?
That's when words fail. Is that what you're...
That's when words fail, exactly. Yeah,
nice.
So there's typically in my not all my tunes, but it's a device I love to see, when I can employ it, when I just need to like tug on that heartstring a bit or turn that corner. Mm-hmm. And that's a nice moment in that tune. What chord is it? It's G sharp. I don't even know what some of these chords are. I'm doing so much by ear as well as harmonically knowing what I'm doing. But then it leads right back to the A, right? So. Anyway,
that's cool. So
learn my own tunes. I'll have to take lessons from myself and figure that one out.
Well, there's a course for that. We'll talk about in a moment for sure. It's so effective. How'd you get into that? When did you notice in your composing that you were digging modulation, or in your listening?
I think it would have just been from whatever songs that I was learning that I recognized. Oh, that's what's happening. That's why I dig that. Brian Wilson, John Lennon was brilliant with common tone shifting, like within a. already. You know, the melody stays the same. In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah.
the very first run through of Lucy in the Sky, John's singing, "Picture yourself in a boat on a river," and Paul suggests, "Picture yourself in a boat on a river." Do, 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 do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, that's whoa. I mean, there's a world right there. And so I just started exploring and recognizing that, well, if I have, you know, I love, if I can find a common tone to, you know, just finding ways, devices of shifting the harmony to go to a next section, be it a bridge or a chorus or whatever it might be within the first. Like there's a tune I wrote called "That Day Came," which starts off. It just starts off in F sharp minor, to the 5, and the melody goes. Which, if you only heard the melody, you'd think it goes back to that F sharp minor, but actually, what happens is. Repeats 1-5 again. Now, but that resolves. So I've used a similar device to get to 2 different keys. One being, you know, back to A major to the relative minor, and then here to C major. But then that resolving to A, then so it's now I'm in F. But it's not a leap. It's not like the static, uncomfortable modulation. It's all just being weaved and tied together by a simple melody.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but I can trace certain things like that back to Lennon McCartney and certainly Brian Wilson. But yeah, I'm finding it in, you know, Chopin. There's a lot of instances where Chopin's doing some incredible things very similar to this. And I, over the pandemic, you know, decided I was going to listen to his entire body of work.
Okay,
you know,
nice.
Had the time, you know, and just, he's just one of those composers that you find people you resonate with or are doing things that you hope to do. And it's always great to absorb that and find that commonality wherever it can come from, you know. So.
Very cool. We mentioned the song Grace. We're talking about that a little bit. Shout out to the Trading Fours podcast, because I listened to your interview on that show, and there was a beautiful story about Grace. Could you share that? What inspired that
absolutely,
song?
yeah. So this is the one song I'd written a few years before doing the recording with Josh, and I'd played it once with not even my own band. It was just a one-off gig, and I decided I want to play this tune. And so it hadn't really been documented in the past. But anyway, I'd gone to one of these traveling Hendrix experience tours where they get together a bunch of really well-known guitar players, and they play a night of Hendrix music. So on this particular night, it was Eric Johnson, everybody from Eric Johnson to Zakk Wylde to God, who else was playing? But Doyle Bramhall Jr. I think Buddy Guy was there that night. That's right. But Billy Cox was part of the band, so he would play on some tunes. So Jimmy's original bass playing buddy from the military, and of course from the Band of Gypsies in the last incarnation of the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So Billy was there. So I was really excited. I had a chance to play with Noel Redding years and years ago in New York City. Mm-hmm. But to me, he's the last, remaining band member from Jimmy's career. So to get to go see him play was an honor. But I happened to get to the gig early enough, and I'm walking into the venue, and at the merch table is Billy and his wife Brenda, and they're just hanging out. He's signing autographs, and she's kind of taking care of business. And so I had brought my Band of Gypsies record with me just in case I met them, man.
Excellent.
So here's my opportunity. So I'm not shy being a fanboy, trust me. So, I just go up and have a chat, and he graciously, took a picture and signed the record. And they weren't that busy, so we were just kind of hanging out. And his wife Brenda I was also having quite a chat with, and really just the sweetest couple. And as I'm talking to her, it came out in conversation that they'd been married for something over 50 years, or just, some, incredible number. And my wife and I are now married 25 years. So I always, anytime I'm around, an older married couple, it's just a funny question, but come on, what's the secret, guys? What's been the secret to this long lasting relationship? So I asked Brenda that, and she just gives me this look and says, grace.
That's
and
awesome.
so,
That's beautiful.
having been married a lengthy time myself, I knew exactly what she meant in that, nobody's perfect, and it takes a lot of forgiveness and empathy and understanding of your mate to make things work, and a lot of compromise. So it was just such a heavy thing to hear, and the way she said it to me really resonated. So I went home that night, and the tune just kind of wrote itself. So I thought, well, if I ever record this, I'll send it to Billy and Brenda. And so sure enough, once we had the basic tune, it maybe not even was the final mix, but I sent them. I'd had their email. I must have reached out after we had that contact back then, and sent it, and they listened to it and really loved it. And I was really felt that I've been successful, because they received the song in the way that I intended it, as a very much a tribute to obviously Billy's time with Jimmy, but to them as a couple, and to beat the odds of, being able to stay together that long. It's really beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, they said really sweet things, and they're really nice people, man. So I wish them the best.
That's lovely. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And man, it's a beautiful tune. Opening with those Hendrixy kind of chords, and
for sure. I had to have that in there.
A little tribute. And then the end, it gets pretty trippy as well. There's some
that was a little nod to after we hit the big last chord, just I put some backwards guitar in and just let some different effects come in and out. And I had the mix engineer add some phasing at the end.
Yeah, nice.
Kind of like, Eddie Kramer was doing back with Axis Bold as Love. Yeah, wanting to kind of create a bit of a psychedelic Jimmy experience. Yeah.
Very cool. Your production practice, I guess, in a sense, has changed a little bit. You were doing like very strictly trio albums. Then last record, you and Mike in the production said, okay, let's start overdubbing. Let's start adding some parts. This album, I guess with the live band, but as well as there's a bunch of guitar overdubs as well, opens it up even perhaps a bit more.
Yeah. So that's the beauty of change and shaking up the way that you do things. That was the story behind the Resolution record. That was the first one I did with Mike Dane as co-producer, and we decided, well, it was something Steve Vai had said to me about how he loved the sections, of a couple of songs I'd recorded for the first record that he put out called That Was Then, This Is Now. He said, I love those sections where it's just guitar, bass, and drums. I can really hear your fingers on the frets. So by the time I'd gotten to Resolution, I was really pretty burned out with the guitar records. It's like, okay, you do the rhythm track, double the rhythm track, and then and just the kind of contrived pattern that it had gotten into, at least to my ear and for my own thing. So that I having already, we'd recorded all the basic tracks, and I would have improvised solos, and I just wasn't happy with anything that I played. I didn't think it was going anywhere new. But when that thought creeped into my head about what Steve said, what if I could do the whole record with just one guitar? And then I got excited, because I knew it was going to be hard, without the comfort of beds of guitars and layering. The tone, can be really good and it'll be fine in the context. But if it's just one guitar, man, that better be a damn good guitar sound, right? Yeah. So that's when Mike, and that was the first time Mike and I had worked together at his studio to do tracking. We had done the basic tracks with our normal engineer, Rob Wexler, down at a lovely analog room called Palmyra down in Palmer, Texas, recording to 2-inch tape and all that, and had a really great organic sound to it. But again, at this point, I realized I'm going to scrap everything that I did and work at it from an angle of I need to incorporate chord and melody when necessary and have no overdubs. So we went down through the process of really taking sometimes a week or two just to get the right sound and try to really get the best tone. And also by then I would have known and taken the time to compose every note. I knew exactly what I wanted to play. I learned from the improvisations that I'd done what bits of the solo I liked and then what I didn't like. and then I gave myself permission to just compose it, which I'd never done. I kind of had this jazz or session guy mentality. Oh, it's got to be live. It's got to be, one or two takes. And that's fantastic if you get that, and it's amazing. And sometimes I get lucky. Like on the new record, there's plenty of live solos. But at this particular point, I just decided, man, I'm going to have every note. I'm going to be happy with every note on this record, because that's never been the case. It's like, yeah, that's cool. Oh, man, I wish I would have. So now we've taken the time with the tone. I've agonizingly, and when I say agonizing, I'm not kidding, like beaten myself up more than I ever have in my life. And I get critical in the studio, but really got it to where I knew what I wanted from every note, and basically got it. I mean, there's, the odd thing here and there. Oh man, I wish I would have a little bit better. But so that I couldn't have done the Sgt. Pepper arrangements without having gone through that experience. So then we actually had gone in to record what was to be a theme from A Perfect World, but ended up also tracking all these Beatle arrangements because some extra studio time had become available. And so I did that whole project, having evolved as a player from the Resolution. But then by the time we got to the theme from A Perfect World, we finished the Pepper record first. Then I went back and I composed theme from A Perfect World on the one guitar. But now it's like, okay, well, we've done that. Give yourself the keys to the toy chest again, and put some piano on there, some organ. What about another clean tone? And it was difficult. So it was like, oh, I haven't done this in a while. This is fun again, right? And having gone through that experience of the really minimalist approach, I think really reignited my the fire a bit in my desire to keep growing, and it was a really important step of my growth, I think, at that point, and was real necessary. As torturous as it was, trust me, to get to that point. Yeah. And I'm proud of those records. All three of those, I think, are some of those certainly the better things in my catalog. I'm proud of the early stuff too, and you're bound to grow. And luckily, I didn't peak when I was 21 or whatever. I hopefully haven't peaked yet, so I'm going to keep working on that.
I think things are going okay. I think
I'm seeing some potential. I don't know about you, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, hang in there.
We'll see.
This episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott, ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and the McNally Smith College of Music. I was one of the beta testers for the course and can say, as a music educator, I was really impressed by the logical sequence of learning. The course has also been endorsed by players such as Brett Garsed and Greg Koch. For more details, check out the links in our show notes. So on the new record, on Electric Truth, when I'm hearing rhythm guitars and things, are you overdubbing those later after those live sessions?
I would have played live with the band and soloed in whatever solo section. So if we decided we need rhythm guitar, and Josh Smith plays on one track, we played live together on Johnny T.
Yeah, that's
so
fun.
He plays some incredibly great rhythm guitar, and I think arguably plays the best solo on the record. Josh, way to go, man! Thanks, buddy. No, he really plays a killer solo. And on that track, I ended up redoing, because I over time figured out better ways of playing the melodies, and ended up playing it on a Les Paul tuned down a whole step, but with 13s on it. Now, famously, Josh uses 13s on his Strat and his Tele style guitars. So there's a pretty fat tone that I need to hold up to playing next to him.
Okay.
So it was just kind of handy that one. It was, I recorded it in standard tuning on the original track, but it really sounded great once I tuned the guitar down to a whole step lower and played it in E. That's there I had, because I had a lot more open string available kind of licks, and it kind of turned out kind of ZZ Top-ish in a way, you know. So I like the tone and the approach on that tune, but I love Josh's rhythm playing for sure.
Nice. Hey, let's talk guitars. You mentioned the Les Paul. What else did you drag out?
So several tunes were actually composed on a Tele. I've got a nice old 68 maple neck Tele. And once I started getting into Josh's thing and we were going to work together, I had my Tele out. So EWF was written on that guitar. Apocryphal was written on that guitar. So the Tele is used on those two tracks. I've got a couple of old Strats for the Hendrixy thing. That's a 65 Strat for the song Grace. And also for When Words Fail, You see, I have a video out on YouTube that's also using that old white Strat.
Yeah.
And
nice.
of course, my main guitar has always been this 1994 prototype of my AT100. And that's my go-to. I mean, I could play all those tunes on this guitar, and that's what I will mainly do live because I don't tour with those vintage guitars.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, for the real specialty tone, sometimes a nice vintage, whatever it might be, just really suits the bill. But and I'm also loving the new ATZ line where it's got the roasted maple. So these are what I'll be touring with and traveling with. And actually, I've been tracking this guitar in the studio lately a lot too. So they all get a bit of use.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, and then the Les Paul was used on Johnny T, and also a '66 Rickenbacker 12-string. Real subtle parts but that was Josh saying, man, if you got an old 12-string, try playing these changes over. Okay, great, I'll try that.
That's great.
I love layering, and there's a little bit of tremolo guitar. There's probably my old 64 Deluxe amp on that one. Everything else is the Mesa Lone Star, so I'm just using that. I rented some at Josh's studio, then I've got my Lone Stars here in my studio. So that's my go-to platform for my pedal jungle.
Beautiful, man. Sounds great. There's one regret from my conversation in 2016, and I'm glad to finally try and set that straight. Your prototype AT guitar has got that little broken scratch plate, and
oh yeah,
every time I see that guitar, I think, why didn't I ask Andy how that broke?
Oh, how it broke?
Yeah. What's the story?
Well, so I can't tell you how many people have asked me, why don't you fix that? It's like, well, the truth of it is that over time, I mean, it was the Florentine, it got in the pickguard would come to a point.
Yeah.
And it's a real, after that screw, it's a pretty thin piece of plastic. So over time, it just warped and started curling up. Uh-huh. And then one day it was just gone. I don't even know where it went. So I've lost a bit more too. There's a bit missing. Oh yeah. The bit of the top of the pickguard here just chipped away the other day. Uh-huh. But so it goes. I mean, now it's a vintage guitar, I guess. And it's been through a lot, and it's been refretted. We think 8 times. It might be 9. We're not sure. Ibanez refretted a couple times, and 2 different luthiers here in Dallas have refretted it multiple times. One guy said, it's going to just turn to dust one day, and that will be sad. But so far, it's holding up, man. It's still hanging in there. It's still call it my whoopee. It's my go-to.
Awesome, man. Well, that scratch plate, that's your signature. Everyone knows it's your guitar when they see that.
Yeah, I think so, right? In fact, when the AZ line came out,
yes,
and they kind of softened the Florentines, everybody assumed that this was shorter because you're emulating the old broken pickguard, but no, it's just because they changed the body shape and the pickguard kind of matches that. It's not as pointy. Well, which I like. I think that's a good looking guitar.
It's cool, yeah. Yeah, I totally noticed that shorter scratch plate thing. I thought for sure Andy's got to get some percentage points on that or some royalties.
Definitely not, but it's all good.
Very cool, very cool. Man, it's a treat just seeing you play that guitar, or both guitars. It's so cool.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, you really jumped into the online guitar thing when obviously all the lockdowns were kicking in. So a couple of things I wanted to speak about before we go. But I guess one's the guitar experience course that you've started, and also just your online concerts that you got right into, which became such a cool thing.
Oh, well, I mean, the guitar experience, I think I started that around 2017. And it kind of stemmed from, I hadn't done any official guitar courses over the years. I had a couple offers from companies occasionally, but I'm a bit of a commitment phobe when it comes to business. Sometimes it's like you never feel comfortable. How's this going to go? Mm-hmm. So this company, TrueFire, had been around for a while, and I had a friend named Jeff Mackerlane who I'd met. We did some guitar camps in the early 90s. Anyway, so he was doing a lot of work with them. Said, hey man, they really want to work with you. You should consider this. And I thought about, he said, yeah, but I had noticed that Larry Carlton and Robin Ford had both been doing courses for TrueFire. Mm-hmm. So I kind of thought, well, man, if these guys are cool with it, it must be because these guys have been through everything, all the shady business dealings, through the music business from the 70s forward. Uh-huh. If my heroes Robin and Larry are cool doing it, and my friend Jeff is telling me, man, these guys are really great, then I need to consider it. So, and I did, and I'm really glad I did. We've done, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 courses by now, and it was such a great experience. And I at that point had been teaching a little bit after not having taught in a long time, where my good friend George Fuller opened a music store here in McKinney where I live called the Guitar Sanctuary. And they have teaching studios, and he asked if I would teach a friend of his son's, right? One of his friend's son. And I found I really enjoyed it, where when I was younger, for whatever reason, it seemed like a bit of a chore, and maybe I didn't feel that I was that good at it, or either didn't realize at the time what I had to offer as a teacher, And so maybe with a bit more wisdom, a little bit more experience, I had done that a little bit. And then when TrueFire asked me to come down and teach, I found it was really coming a lot more naturally than I ever thought. So the courses went so well, and it was pretty easy for me to do that because they have such a system down there. As long as you kind of know what you're talking about, you're in good shape. Just come down and record your material. So, I really should do this for all my songs, because we weren't dealing with specific songs of mine, global concepts and improvisation and that type of thing. So yeah, I just came up with the concept. Well, I should go through my entire catalog song by song, play the tune on camera, and then, I have a friend that I met in Sao Paulo that's an amazing transcriptionist. So he transcribes everything for me. And then I, in addition to playing the song, will then get on camera for usually about an hour to an hour and a half and really go through the entire tune note for note, to not only have you have the transcription written or the Guitar Pro file to learn from, but then I go through and explain, in real time, well, here's the phrase, here's how I play it, and then maybe explain, what am I thinking, and why does this sound the way it sounds? So I kind of try to get to the core of each phrase and component, and a lot of times, having to explain something that may have come very natural all through my playing career, but then have to, how do I explain how to do this? Well, here's what's happening, but then also finding elements along the way. So it's not just about, okay, learn this song if you want to learn this song, but each phrase and each idea, usually there's a world within that you could take and extrapolate it into many, many ways. So I'm finding things that I might have only played once for whatever reason and think, oh man, I need to go back to that and really see how I can utilize that in other, whatever different parts of the scale degrees or the guitar neck in general. So I'm learning a heck of a lot just by explaining some of these tunes of mine. So that's one component. We try to do a new song every month, Song of the Month, clever title. But the other thing during the pandemic was, okay, nobody's got any gigs, and I quickly saw a friend of mine advertising on social media about, hey, see me on stage today at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. I'm like, wow. So I got it in my head. Well, I'm going to do that too. I'll do 2 shows every Saturday. And I got a hold of this guy. His name's Jarrett Reddick. He's in a band called Bowling for Soup, which is a pretty well-known, pop rock band, really great band. And so he's the lead singer for that group. And I said, man, show me the ropes. How do I do this? And he hooked me up with the company is called Stage It. They're the platform that does the live streaming. And I just got set up with a simple camera, and I'd already been, getting good sounds in my studio. So I had backing tracks on all my records of all the tunes without my lead guitar. And I've done the clinics for years where I'm just, playing along with tracks and talking to people. But now I'm talking to a camera, and people have a chat board that I can see off in the peripheral. But it turned into a thing. The funny thing about Jarrett's situation was his post said, 2 p.m. US, 8 p.m. UK. It was one show, but he was promoting the time zones for his fan base. Yeah. US and the UK is his big fan base. But I mistook that and thought, I'm going to do 2 shows every Saturday. So I very naively doubled my gigs, not realizing, A, this is going to be really hard, and B, but it turned out amazing. And there was all these loyal fans that came to almost every show, plus obviously others coming and going for smaller doses of me. But I was so blessed to have that to do, you know what I mean? Not everybody was that fortunate. So, in a very dark time in the world, at least I had an avenue to keep busy musically. And it really, it gave some people a place to be, and all these people became really good friends just by seeing each other on the message board, and they're chatting away, you know. And so it was something to do to keep busy, and I was very fortunate, along with a lot of songwriting. So I've got lots of records to come. Trust me, you know, lots of backlogs. I really found that, you know, nobody had been home that much. Any musician that traveled at all, none of us had ever been home that long since the beginning of our careers, you know. And boy, I'm spoiled now. It's going to be a lot harder to get me to leave home. It's like, that's why right now I'm not doing any lengthy touring. I'm getting out and doing little bits to get my toe back in the water. But yeah, you know, it's awfully. Luckily, my wife still loves me. I think, right, sweetie? Yeah, okay.
That's the grace.
And my son's 18, still living at home, so I'm happy to be there for that.
Yeah, awesome.
You know, yeah.
That's cool. It sounds like you've struck a really good balance in working.
Yeah.
In that way.
Well,
that's
it's
really
always has been. I mean, my son, like, you know, born in 2004. So from that moment on, every decision was based on, meaning music business decision, was based on if it was going to take me away from home too long or not, you know, and I would have to turn down certain gigs or tours if it was just going to be too much time away from home, because I was determined not to miss my son growing up. You know, I had to work and I would go out, but if I could limit things to 2 or 3 weeks at a time, that's what I would do. Mm-hmm. That way I wouldn't miss too much, even though 2 and 3 weeks when you're dealing with an infant is a lot of time. So it was very hard, man. It was very hard. But I'm very proud that I balanced it, I think, the best that I possibly could have, and, you know, really got to be with my son growing up. So these things you never regret. It's like, man, I should have done more gigs, or man, or I should have spent more time with my son. And I'm like, I don't have to feel guilty about that, because you know, did it the best I could.
That's awesome, man. That's so good to hear. I've got we're probably similar ages. I've been married similar time as you. My kids are similar age to yours, and
okay,
I love hearing that. I love hearing that side of things too.
It's
That's
amazing,
beautiful.
Right? Yeah.
Good for you, man. Well done.
So do you travel much with music, or are you able to stay home primarily?
No, my day job is music teaching.
Oh, great.
So
fantastic.
I'm playing pretty much every weekend, but it's I'm back home at night, or I'm away.
You're back home at night.
I'm away for 1 or 2 nights max. So
that's great. That's a good balance, man. So it's great that you're teaching and you got some gigs on the weekend. And, but you're home, man. It's just that's the good stuff right there.
It is good there, man. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Yeah, man. Well, it's good to speak to you, man.
Loved it. Could you play us out with some stuff, seeing as you all plugged in?
Any requests? What would you like?
Oh, requests. Okay. Man, I'm looking at my notes. Can you play any of One Last Time?
Ooh, I've never played that a cappella. This is a quirky tune because it's in B flat.
Yeah, I don't put it in B flat.
I'm not sure why I chose B flat, but let me try. It's a little tough. See, that's one I composed without chord and melody together. I composed that. I came up with the chord progression first, a very simple. Beatles in there.
Yeah.
But a lot of the tunes, like Grace, even that one, that doesn't really work so well as a solo piece. The riff is good. I'll have to work on solo arrangements of these tunes without my band,
Oh man, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thanks so much, Andy. All the best with the record and your trips.
Thank you, man. Well, and I hope I come to see you in Australia as soon as possible. It's truly one of my favorite places on the planet to be. So hopefully to get back soon.
Do it. We'd love to see you.
Awesome,
all right,
man.
Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your
Matt.
evening.
Cheers, man. Thanks for listening to the record. I appreciate it.
Oh, my great pleasure.
Awesome, man.
Okay.
Cheers.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Oh, man. Andy Timmons on the Guitar Speak podcast. How good was that? Solo Andy Timmons just playing guitar for you and me. Good times. Hey, please check out the record, Electric Truth. It's out now everywhere. My great thanks to Fretboard Biology for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Todd. Love those guys. Got to tell you, it's been lots of fun in 2022 here on the show. Andy, in today's episode, Joe Satriani, Guthrie Govan, David Aegis. The Iconic series has kept motoring on. The last episode was the Gibson Oddballs. That was lots of fun with my friends Rob and Gabor. And I've got to tell you, we've got some fun stuff coming up too. Some more themed shows with those guys and more interviews. Dave Leslie from Truck and the Baby Animals. Legendary author Dave Hunter talking about 75 years of Fender history. Chad Wynn, ex-Gibson employee, telling us some really fascinating behind-the-scenes stories about the Gibson factory there in Nashville. And more stuff to come. All right, my name's been Matt Wakeling. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'd like to leave you with some words of wisdom from the unbelievably legendary and influential German rocker Michael Schenker. You know what he told us to do?
Keep rocking, keep on rocking.
Keep on rocking, indeed. All right, I'll catch you next time.